They came in the dead of night, their ships blotting out the stars, their weapons humming with alien power. They expected submission. They expected fear. But they had forgotten what we once were. Beneath the ruins of our fallen cities, in the bloody dust of our shattered world, something ancient stirred. A fire long thought extinguished rekindled in our hearts. We were not prey. We were warriors, the descendants of conquerors, survivors of ages of war and strife. And when we rose, we did not rise alone. They came in the dead of night, their ships blotting out the stars, their weapons humming with alien power. They expected submission. They expected fear. But they had forgotten what we once were. Beneath the ruins of our fallen cities, in the bloody dust of our shattered world, something ancient stirred. A fire long thought extinguished rekindled in our hearts. We were not prey. We were warriors, the descendants of conquerors, survivors of ages of war and strife. And when we rose, we did not rise alone. The day the sky burned it started without warning. The sky fractured with light, streaks of fire descending like vengeful gods upon our cities. Their ships, black, angular, monstrous, hovered above, casting long shadows over the world we once ruled. The air smelled of burning metal, ozone, and something else. Fear. They did not come with diplomacy. There were no demands, no attempts at negotiation. Only destruction. Their weapons, pulse cannons and energy beams unlike anything we had ever seen, tore through skyscrapers and homes alike. The first attack lasted only an hour, but in that time, humanity's mightiest cities fell. New York. Beijing. London. Moscow. Gone. Millions died in those first waves, crushed beneath collapsing buildings, incinerated in the white-hot blasts of alien firepower, or hunted down by the creatures they unleashed upon us. They were unlike anything that had ever walked this earth. Tall, exoskeletal monstrosities with serrated limbs and glowing eyes, their screeches echoing through the ruins like the cries of demons. The invaders moved methodically, striking at our power grids, communication hubs, military installations. Within days, the world as we knew it had ceased to exist. And yet, they did not finish us. Not all at once. Perhaps they wanted to break us slowly, to make us surrender without the need for prolonged battle. Perhaps they believed we would simply crumble under the weight of their overwhelming superiority. They did not understand. We were not prey. The fires of memory in the darkness, among the wreckage, we remembered. For centuries, we had lived in relative peace, our wars small and controlled, our weapons devastating but restrained. We had long forgotten the raw, brutal instincts that had shaped our ancestors. But deep within our bones, buried in our history, in the old songs and the stories whispered by firelight, we still carried the echoes of who we had once been. We were the descendants of those who had marched across continents with nothing but steel and will. Of warriors who had faced down empires, who had tamed the wild and conquered the impossible. We had fought amongst ourselves for so long that we had forgotten what it meant to fight together. But the invaders reminded us. They united us in blood and fire. The resistance did not begin as a structured effort. It was chaos at first, scattered groups fighting in isolated pockets, people taking up arms with whatever they could find. But humanity learns quickly. And we adapted. In the shadows of their towering war machines, we learned how to strike and disappear. How to use their own weapons against them. How to move unseen beneath the ruins of our own cities. We became ghosts, striking in the night, vanishing before their sensors could track us. The invaders had superior technology, but we had something they could never understand. We had history. We had rage. The first victory it was in the ruins of Washington, D.C. that the tide began to turn. A group of survivors, former soldiers, engineers, and desperate civilians, managed to capture one of their war machines, hacking into its systems, learning its weaknesses. The aliens had never imagined that we could understand their technology. But humans had spent centuries reverse engineering and stealing from each other's inventions. It was in our nature to take, to adapt, to evolve. With that first machine, we learned how to fight them. We learned how to break their armor, how to disrupt their communications, how to turn their own weapons against them. And for the first time since the invasion began, we won. A single battle. A small one. But a victory nonetheless. Word spread like wildfire. The resistance grew bolder. Underground networks formed, connecting scattered fighters across continents. And then, something unexpected happened. The invaders faltered. They had expected fear, surrender, compliance. They had not anticipated defiance. They were learning, too, learning that humanity was not so easily broken. The reckoning we were still outmatched. Their technology was superior, their forces vast. But we had something they lacked. Desperation. The will to survive, no matter the cost. And so, we fought. With scavenged weapons and stolen alien tech, with ambushes and sabotage, with sheer, unrelenting fury. The battles grew larger, the victories more frequent. The invaders began to make mistakes. And we took advantage of every single one. It wasn't just soldiers who fought. It was everyone. Scientists worked tirelessly, unlocking the secrets of their weapons. Hackers infiltrated their systems, disrupting their networks. Engineers repurposed old war machines, welding together remnants of human and alien technology into something terrifyingly effective. We did not fight like an army. We fought like a species backed into a corner, with nothing left to lose. And when the time came, when the final push began, we did not hesitate. We rose. We struck. And we remembered who we once were. The war ends, but humanity begins anew. The final battle was not fought over a single city or nation. It was waged across the entire planet, a war of attrition, of cunning and brutality. The invaders, realizing their mistake too late, began to retreat. But we did not let them. Not this time. We chased them into the skies, using their own ships against them. We pursued them beyond Earth's atmosphere, striking at their fleets as they tried to flee. We were no longer fighting for survival. We were fighting for revenge. When the last of their ships vanished into the void, we did not cheer. There was no celebration, no victory parade. Only silence, and the weight of what we had endured. The Earth was scarred, but we were alive. And we were changed. The invasion had torn away our illusions, stripped us down to the very core of what we were. We had remembered our past, not just the wars, but the resilience, the unity, the fire that had driven us to build civilizations from nothing. We were no longer the same species that had once looked up at the stars in wonder. Now, we looked at them with something else. Purpose. Determination. And perhaps, just perhaps, the quiet promise that one day, we would not wait for the next invaders to come to us. One day, we would take the fight to them. Because we were human. And we remembered. The war did not turn overnight. The invaders had spent years preparing for their conquest, studying our planet, our defenses, our weaknesses. But they had made one fatal miscalculation. They studied what we had become. Not what we once were. In the first few months of occupation, the world was silent. Cities burned, and the survivors hid in the shadows, watching the invaders establish their rule. Their forces were precise, efficient, and merciless. They set up massive strongholds where our capitals once stood, deploying automated sentinels and war machines to patrol the ruins. They did not expect the silence to be our weapon. Small groups of survivors began to strike from the ruins, ambushing lone patrols, sabotaging supply routes, stealing their weapons. At first, it was nothing more than isolated resistance, people lashing out in desperation. But then, something changed. The resistance was no longer scattered. It was organized. Veteran soldiers, engineers, and hackers who had survived the initial invasion began to unify the remnants of humanity. They communicated through encrypted signals, setting up hidden outposts deep underground, in the mountains, in the ruins of the very cities the invaders had destroyed. And from the ashes, a new war began. Learning their weaknesses, we were outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in every conceivable way. The invaders' technology was centuries ahead of ours. Their ships could level entire cities in minutes. Their weapons could burn through steel like paper. But they had one weakness. They were arrogant. They saw us as nothing more than primitive creatures, too weak, too divided, too backward to pose any real threat. Their soldiers were methodical, relying on advanced scanners and drones rather than instincts. Their strategies were based on conquest, not prolonged war. And we exploited that. Humanity had always been good at one thing: war. It was in our history, in our blood. We had fought each other for thousands of years, refining tactics, learning from every battle, adapting to every new challenge. Now, we used that knowledge against our invaders. We learned how to move unseen, hiding in places their scanners overlooked. We studied their machines, finding vulnerabilities in their armor, weaknesses in their energy fields. We developed crude but effective EMP devices that could disable their drones. And most importantly, we turned their own weapons against them. The first major victory came when a small group of resistance fighters managed to hijack an alien dropship. It was a suicide mission, 12 men and women, armed with nothing but scavenged rifles and stolen explosives. They infiltrated one of the invaders' strongholds, fought their way through squads of armored sentinels, and seized control of the ship. They did not survive. But their sacrifice gave us something priceless: knowledge. We reverse-engineered their technology, figuring out how to use their weapons, how to fly their ships, how to shut down their security systems. The war began to shift. For the first time, the invaders were the ones being hunted. The Battle of Old Europe, the first large-scale offensive, was in what remained of Europe. The invaders had established a massive fortress in the ruins of Berlin, using it as a command center for the entire region. It was impenetrable, walls of reinforced alien alloy, energy shields that could withstand nuclear strikes, an army of war machines guarding every entrance. But we were not trying to breach the walls. We were trying to bring them down. Using stolen alien tech, resistance scientists developed a disruptor, a weapon capable of short-circuiting the invaders' power grids. It had never been tested. There was no guarantee it would work. But we had no other choice. Under the cover of night, hundreds of resistance fighters launched a coordinated assault. Diversionary teams attacked outposts along the outskirts, drawing the invaders' forces away. Meanwhile, a small infiltration unit slipped into the fortress through underground tunnels, sewers, subway lines, old war bunkers that had long been forgotten. The disruptor was activated at the heart of the stronghold. For the first time, the invaders' technology failed them. Their shields collapsed. Their war machines powered down. Their soldiers, once near invincible behind their energy armor, were suddenly exposed. And humanity struck with a fury that had not been seen in centuries. The battle lasted 3 days. Streets ran red with alien and human blood alike. But in the end, we took Berlin back. And the invaders realized they were no longer fighting prey. They were fighting something far worse. They were fighting survivors. The invaders began to retreat after Berlin, the resistance grew stronger. More cities fell back into human hands. The invaders, once so certain of their dominance, began to hesitate. Their fleets no longer moved with the same certainty. Their patrols became cautious, their forces stretched thin. And then, they made their first desperate move. They tried to negotiate. It was not a message of peace. It was a demand. Surrender, and they would spare what remained of our species. They would allow us to exist, but only as servants, as a conquered people beneath their rule. Our answer was given in fire. The resistance launched a global offensive, hitting alien strongholds in North America, Asia, Africa, South America, all at once. It was chaos, brutal and relentless. Entire cities were reduced to war zones. Humanity fought with every weapon at its disposal: conventional firearms, hacked alien cannons, makeshift explosives. The invaders, for the first time, tasted fear. They had underestimated us once. They would not live to do so again. The final push: the invaders' command structure was failing. Their forces were weakened. Their technology, once so unstoppable, had been compromised. They had one last stronghold, an orbital base floating above Earth, a fortress in the sky. We did not have the ships to reach them. So we stole theirs. Hundreds of resistance fighters boarded hijacked alien vessels, launching the final assault. It was a battle fought in space, in the void between Earth and the stars. The invaders fought desperately, their last attempt to reclaim control. They failed. Humanity did not just destroy their command station. We took it. We learned its secrets, studied its maps, discovered where the invaders had come from. And then, we made a decision. We had won the war. But we were not done. We were never prey, and we will never be again. The Earth was broken, scarred beyond recognition. Billions were dead. Cities were nothing but ruins. But humanity stood victorious. We had remembered who we were, not just survivors, not just warriors, but something far more dangerous. We were explorers. Conquerors. A species that did not wait for the next war to come to us. And as we looked to the stars, we knew one thing for certain. The invaders had come to Earth, expecting easy prey. But they had awakened something they could never defeat. And soon, we would take the war to them. Because we were human. And now, they would be the ones who feared the dark. The war had taken everything from us: our cities, our loved ones, the world we once knew. But it had also given us something in return. Purpose. We were no longer fighting for survival. We were fighting for something far greater. Vengeance. Justice. The assurance that no species would ever dare to invade our world again. The invaders had tried to flee. They had retreated to their last remaining fortress, a massive command station in orbit above Earth. It was their stronghold, their last defense. If we took it, the war would be over. We had stolen their ships, learned their tactics, turned their own weapons against them. And now, we would finish what they started. This was not just a battle. It was the reckoning. The assault begins. We launched at dawn. Hundreds of resistance fighters boarded hijacked alien vessels, rising from the ruins of Earth like ghosts returning for vengeance. The sky, once darkened by their warships, now burned with our retaliation. The enemy saw us coming. Their orbital cannons roared to life, sending streaks of plasma through the void. Explosions erupted around us, ships torn apart mid-flight. But we did not stop. We were beyond fear. We maneuvered through the firestorm, dodging debris, weaving through enemy lines. Our stolen ships blended with theirs, causing confusion in their ranks. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. We were already inside. The battle for the station. The moment we breached the station's hull, the real fight began. Corridors filled with the sound of battle, gunfire, explosions, the screams of dying soldiers. The invaders fought with desperation, their disciplined ranks now shattered by panic. They had never faced an enemy like us before, an enemy that refused to break, refused to surrender, refused to die. We cut through their defenses, moving like shadows in the flickering red emergency lights. We had learned their weaknesses. Their armor, their weapons, their tactics, none of it mattered anymore. We were better. We pressed forward, room by room, hallway by hallway. The station trembled as secondary explosions ripped through its core. The invaders were losing control. Their once unbreakable fortress was becoming their tomb. And then we reached the command center. Face to face with the enemy, the doors to the control room hissed open, revealing the architects of our suffering. They stood before us, their leaders, tall, armored beings with cold, calculating eyes. Their arrogance was gone. In its place was something we had never seen in them before. Fear. They had never believed this moment would come. That their superior technology, their vast empire, their advanced warfare would fail against a race they had deemed primitive. But they had underestimated us. They had thought us weak because we had forgotten our past. But war had a way of reminding us. We raised our weapons, but their leader stepped forward, raising a trembling hand. It spoke, its voice distorted through our translators. Mercy, it said. A single word. A plea. It was almost laughable. They had shown us no mercy when they burned our cities. When they slaughtered our families. When they hunted us like animals. They did not deserve mercy. And we did not grant it. The end of the war, the battle was over in moments. A hail of gunfire. The alien leaders fell, their bodies crumpling to the floor. The station's alarms screamed, warning of impending destruction. The structure was collapsing, its power failing, its systems overloading. We had minutes to escape. We transmitted one final message to Earth. The war is over. We have won. And then we ran. Explosions followed us down the corridors, the station tearing itself apart. We barely made it to our ships before the entire structure detonated, a fireball erupting in the cold void of space. The last remnants of their empire burned above Earth. We watched in silence, our faces illuminated by the dying light of our enemy. It was over. A changed humanity. When we returned to Earth, we did not return as the people we once were. We had won. But victory did not bring celebration. There were no cheers, no parades. Only the quiet realization of what we had become. Survivors. Warriors. Conquerors. We had remembered who we were, but in doing so, we had also changed. We were no longer just humans. We were something more. The world we had once known was gone. Cities lay in ruins, nations had fallen, billions were dead. We could not rebuild what had been lost. So we would build something new. And we would never be victims again. The future belongs to us. The invaders had come expecting easy prey. They had awakened something far worse. We looked to the stars, not with wonder, but with purpose. The war had shown us that we were not alone. If one species had come for us, others might follow. But we would not wait. We would take the fight to them. Not as conquerors. Not as invaders. But as the last warning any empire would ever need. We were humanity. We were the storm. And we remembered. The war was over, but the scars remained. The Earth we had once known was gone, our cities reduced to ruins, our history burned away in fire and ash. The stars above, once a symbol of wonder and endless possibility, now held a different meaning. They were a battlefield. We stood among the wreckage of our old world, gazing up at the night sky, knowing that this was not the end of our journey. It was only the beginning. We were never prey. The invaders had come expecting weak, divided creatures, too lost in our own conflicts to fight back. They had learned the truth too late. We had remembered who we once were. We were warriors. Survivors. A species forged in the fires of war, shaped by struggle, hardened by loss. They had believed their technology made them superior, but they had never faced an enemy like us, an enemy that refused to kneel, refused to break, refused to be conquered. And in the end, they had paid the price. The final battle had been more than a victory. It had been a message. We would never allow this to happen again. Not to us. Not to anyone. Looking to the stars with the invaders gone, the silence of Earth felt almost unnatural. We had fought for so long, lived in the shadows, survived against impossible odds. And now, with the war won, there was only one question left. What now? There was nothing left to rebuild. Our old world was dead. But we were not. We could have stayed, tried to reclaim what little remained. But as we looked up at the night sky, we knew there was only one path forward. The stars had always called to us. And now, we would answer. A warning to the universe: the war had changed us. We were no longer just humans. We were something more. A force. A reckoning. The invaders had shown us the dangers that lurked in the darkness. But they had also given us the tools to reach beyond our own world. Their ships, their weapons, their knowledge, it all belonged to us now. And we would use it. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. But to make sure that no other world suffered as ours had. We were no longer the hunted. Now, we were the ones watching from the dark. And if any empire dared to look upon Earth as prey again, they would find only ghosts. And a storm waiting to strike. The end, or the beginning. The war for Earth was over. But the war for the future had just begun. Because we were human. And we remembered. The war had ended, but the echoes of battle still lingered. Earth, once a beacon of life, was now a graveyard of civilizations, both human and alien. The ruins of our greatest cities stood as silent witnesses to the war that had nearly erased us. Scorched battlefields stretched across continents, littered with the wreckage of machines that had once been unstoppable. Yet, in the midst of all the destruction, humanity stood unbroken. We had not just survived. We had endured. A new beginning. There was no going back to the world we had lost. The homes, the nations, the dreams we once had, they were all dust now. But that did not mean there was no future. We gathered in what was left of our cities, bringing together the last remnants of our people. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, leaders, those who had fought, those who had endured, those who had found the strength to rise when all hope seemed lost. The choice before us was clear. We could stay and try to rebuild what had been destroyed. Try to carve out a life among the ruins, hoping that no other threat would come for us. Or we could move forward. Reaching for the stars. The invaders had come from the darkness above, believing themselves the masters of the universe. They had tried to break us, to claim our world as their own. Instead, they had given us the means to leave it. Their ships, their technology, their knowledge, it all now belonged to us. We had studied their ways, learned their weaknesses, adapted their machines to our will. And as we stood among the ruins of our home, we knew what had to be done. We would not wait for another war to find us. We would take the fight beyond Earth. Not as conquerors. Not as invaders. But as guardians. We would travel the stars, not to dominate, but to ensure that no other world suffered as ours had. To hunt those who thought themselves untouchable. To make sure that no empire, no species, no force in the universe ever again looked at humanity and saw prey. The final warning. As our fleets prepared to launch, we sent one last message into the void, a simple warning to anyone who might be watching. To those who would seek to conquer, to enslave, to destroy, know this: we were once weak. We were once divided. But you came, and you reminded us of who we truly are. We are warriors. Survivors. A force beyond your understanding. And if you come for us again, you will not find a world to conquer. You will find only a storm waiting to consume you. With that, we turned our eyes to the stars. Earth was our past. But the universe. That was our future. The end.